Good morning, everyone. We're so glad that you could join us for this next installment of the MSL Learn webinar series. Rebekah Kamp, our data coordinator, is going to walk you through new information about the Public Library Survey. So welcome, Rebekah. And Rebekah will also introduce our other speaker for this morning. So thanks so much.
Fabulous. Thank you, Colette. And here's our shining faces in case you're not seeing the web cameras come through right now. But as Colette mentioned, I am Rebekah Kamp and I'm your State Library Data Coordinator. I'm also happy to welcome Lindsay Thompson to our call this morning. Lindsay is the Director of Customer Service for our new Public Library Survey platform, which is called Counting Opinions LibPass. At your Spring Federation meetings, I reported that the Public Library Statistics Task Force, which I think some of you are on this call, was considering our priorities for the PLS software. As our old contract with Baker and Taylor closed, we wanted to make sure we selected a product that best fit the needs of both the state library and the Montana public libraries and our other stakeholders. So why the change? Why did we decide to go with Counting Opinions LibPass? The task force, as well as myself, wanted to prioritize software that would allow us to deploy multiple surveys from a single system and provide more features like templates to simplify reporting to library boards and our other vested partners. LibPass offers all of this functionality, and I'm excited to use it for this year's Public Library Survey. Thank you for joining us today to familiarize yourself with the software. The PLS will open on October 2nd. But we'll have some additional training options over the coming months. First of which will be on September 19th at the fall workshops in Great Falls. And through this session, librarians, as well as your trustees, if they're attending, will learn how to navigate the new software. So some of what you'll see today, but we'll have more time to get a little more in depth. We'll also address some questions about the PLS that I often hear from you, such as how to report your financials and your programs. We'll preview our new data elements and discuss ways to use the PLS for informing important decisions. And part of that will be diving into those report templates. The training sessions will be a nice follow-up session, those that are being offered by Tracy and Kara. So I want to give a shout out to them because they're going to be presenting at fall workshops as well. And they'll be talking about how libraries create value for their communities and measuring the value of library services. And then my session will be the third one where we'll get into that quantitative piece that you can infuse into your stories. If you aren't able to join us at the fall workshops, or you just have some questions you want to dive into once you get into the software, I welcome you to join me for office hours throughout October and November. The schedule's available on Aspen, but you don't need to register for those. Those are going to be drop-in sessions with no formal agenda. It's just an opportunity that I've blocked out on my calendar for you to come with any questions you have. I'm happy to share screens on Zoom and walk through particular parts of the survey if that's a need you have. And as always, if those office hours don't work for you, just send me an email. I'm happy to do a one-on-one call or an appointment on Zoom, and reach out. We'll get that on the calendar. In this year's survey, we've introduced a few changes. First, with much celebration from all, but especially from me, the COVID-19 questions have been retired. We are planning to add 3 different categories of questions this year to fill some research needs we have coming out of the State Library and from our Network Advisory Council. You can find the questions on our State Library website, but they are related to your library salaries, buildings, and broadband. I encourage you to complete all of these sections because the resulting data is going to help MSL better understand opportunities for supporting libraries in Montana. And with a mind towards the future, it also sets us up to be able to pivot quickly if we have new funding coming in, either state or federal. We can strategically deploy those dollars if we already have the information in place. So for these and all other questions, as I mentioned, we have resources available to help you answer the questions. On our website, you'll find the first of which is pictured on the screen here. It's the survey worksheet. And this is a printable document. It has all the questions I know that some people like to pencil in the answers before they have access to the software, and so this is the document you can use for that. You do need to enter them into LibPass. We only accept them electronically, but if you want to get a head start, it's available on the website already for you to use. The second is the data elements guide. This is the much longer document. I don't recommend printing it, but it does give you all the definitions, both federal definitions as well as any kind of local state definitions we've created to help you answer the questions. New to that particular document, I've added where the question came from, if it was a federal question or a state question, because I've had some libraries curious about, why this question, where did it come from? So I added that information to that document. And then the last resource, which actually is the first one on my slide, no, it's not, it's the last one on the slide, is the program tracking template. And this is an Excel template that you can use to track your programs throughout the year. If you haven't discovered this yet, I've had feedback from libraries that it's very useful because you can track all year long your programs, and then it's got a pivot table that'll give you your answers that you need exactly as you need them to fill into the survey. So if you're not using that yet, you could start using it now for next year's survey. And I will now turn it over to Lindsay, who will walk you through our new software. Welcome, Lindsay.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Let me just share my screen here. And hopefully everybody can, I'm gonna get this down here so I can make it big. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this all right. I'm going to log in today as an example library, and where I am here is at mt for Montana.countingopinions.com. So this will be the portal that you will come to enter your username and password, which will be provided. And then you can log in and enter your data. You can also gain access to reports. Reports is something that we will review a little bit later. But just to give you an idea of some of the things that are possible, we added a little link to some ready reports here, and we welcome your feedback on the things that you would like to see. So you can download the data in Excel. You can view some of the current year data here in a table report. These table reports can be sorted in an ascending or descending order. I'll just make my screen a little bit smaller so you can see everything on one screen. You're going to see 10 libraries at a time on the screen in a table report, but you can expand this out to see all the libraries. You can drill down to any of the graphs that are available, and you can also download this data into Excel. It does open in a .xml file format, so it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to open it? Say okay, and then you can view that data in your Excel report. We've added a couple of trend reports, a 5-year trend and a 10-year trend report. So you can click on those. There's some comparative data. This is going to take into consideration who you are when you log in. So it's going to compare yourselves to other libraries with a similar population, in this case, a 20% population range. So you'll see some libraries that are comparable in size to your library when looking at that comparative data. And we've also stuck up a pamphlet here. This is something we could also email out to you once you complete the annual report for 2023. So you'll be able to review that, that pamphlet just by clicking that link. Or again, we can email those out with the 2023 data if that's something that you will find useful. So there's just a few examples here. There are lots of reports to go through, but we will leave that to another day. Today, I'm going to focus on the data input screen, and maybe I'll just back up one screen to this home screen as well. There are links to the worksheets and definitions, and this enter button or the data input button located at the top right-hand side of the screen will take you to the data input screen where you can start entering in your annual report data. Not just yet though, but come October. But I'm just going to give you a little preview of what this looks like. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is a navigation menu, and you can select a particular section of the survey to view that section of the survey, or you can view all sections of the survey by selecting the Open All option and scrolling through all the different survey sections. You can also use the next or previous buttons to go forward or backward in the survey. You'll notice that a lot of these buttons are repeated at the top and the bottom of the screen as well. So you can use any of those buttons if they have the same label, they do the same thing. You can also hide this left side navigation menu, so you can get rid of it if it's taking up too much screen space, and then you can reveal it again by clicking on those two chevron symbols that are in its place once it's hidden. I'm just going to go ahead and open all. I'll go through a few of the different survey types or survey questions that you'll see here. Some of the questions have this gray background, and that just means that they're read-only. So those are questions that will be pre-filled and locked down. You won't be able to edit them directly. If there is a change in your library name or library address, that's something that you'll need to reach out to the state library. They do need to code it in a particular way when they submit it to IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So they'll just need some additional information, and they do that coding sort of on the back end. So if you do have an update to your library name or address, please reach out to the state library and they can adjust that on your behalf. But otherwise, hopefully they're fairly static year after year, or the fields that are locked down are fairly static information. There will also be fields that are pre-filled that you can edit. So if I doubt county name will change, but if your county name needs to be updated, you can edit it by doing things that you would edit in any normal sort of like Word document or any other document that you might use. You can highlight the entire thing and replace it. Maybe we'll be in the county of Lindsay. And as soon as you update that, there's a little load icon that appears on the screen that shows you that it's saved. You can select the end of the text in that thing and use your backspace to get rid of it, to delete it. You can put your cursor at the front of the field and use the delete option. So all this similar things that you would find in any editing tool, if you will. So you'll see that many of the fields are pre-filled, and you can make updates to those if need be. Some of the fields will not be pre-filled. They will require you to enter a value for the current year, but you may notice that there is a value located to the right of the field. And if I hover over that, I'm sure the tooltip is small coming through the screen on your end, but it does say that that's a previous period value. So you'll see that in many cases, the previous period value is listed to the right of the field. And that's there to be a guideline when you're entering your data, just so you know sort of what was entered last year. You can see what it is on the fly, or if you happen to trigger an edit check, that you can see what that value was last year. So if I don't know if I, but if an edit check were to pop up, you'd see a little pop-up on the screen. Actually, they might be selected to pop up when you are entering or when you've tried to submit your data. But you'll see a little pop-up on the screen, and you'll be able to read the message that's listed there for the edit check and enter in a note. So it will look similar to this annotations pop-up, but it will say that it's an edit check on the top, and it will give the reason that that edit check has been triggered. And then you can enter in a note or an annotation to satisfy that edit check. Sometimes you may get an edit check that feels maybe unreasonable, like your data is totally accurate and you're getting this pop-up message, and you may feel some frustration. Why am I getting this edit check? And you just write in, my data is correct. While that may satisfy the edit check, it doesn't provide the needed data that IMLS requires, or that Rebekah requires at the state library. She'll have to submit all of this to the national data set, and they do look at these edit checks to find out what's going on at the library. So you may have gone just from one staff person to two staff people, and that may be enough to trigger a percentage value increase that triggers an edit check. So rather than just saying this data is correct, try and write out an explanation that not only other libraries can utilize and the national data set can utilize when they're looking at the data, but even things that might be helpful to your own library down the line. So you may have a big increase in the number of program attendees that you have, and that may trigger an edit check, and the data might be perfectly accurate. So you would type in, we've been heavily marketing our programs, and it has led to increased attendance. Or, since COVID is over, more people are entering the library and attending these programs. Whatever that story may be at your library, try and enter an explanation that would make sense to peer libraries that are looking at your data, to people that have no knowledge of your data system, and honestly, even your own library down the line. It may be helpful to figure out what was going on, several years ago. These annotations and edit check notes, you may be prompted for some, or you can add them on your own accord as well if you just want to enter a little story around the data. These are things that are available on the reporting side. So any library can go in and include the annotations when they're looking at the data. So if they're looking at the data and they see something that maybe looks out of the norm, out of the ordinary, they might include annotations and get more of a story around that data. So try and make these annotations clear. Once you've added an annotation, the notepad icon will change to an orange color. And you can print these annotations out when you go to print your form. They'll also be listed at the bottom of the screen. Those notes will be listed down here. So you'll have a whole listing of your annotations available as well. There is an internal note that is also available. The internal notes are not public. They're limited to your library. And when you click on an item number, or a survey question, you'll see that there are these internal notes. And in here, you can enter in something like run the XYZ report from the ILS, and enter column, G, or whatever the case may be. You can write out an explanation. Maybe you've reached out to the state library for a clarification on a definition, and then you want to write that note here so that you have it again for next year. You can add any notes to any of these data elements, and then next year when you come here, you'll be able to see this note, this annotation. It'll be date stamped. It will have the information. You can always remove it going forward. So if in subsequent years, you have a definition on an ILS that you no longer have, maybe you've changed ILS systems, maybe you can remove that note because it's no longer relevant. And if I select the definitions link, I'll be able to view not only the definitions that are from the federal survey from IMLS and the state definitions, but I'll also be able to include all of my internal notes. So all of the definition related notes can be included there. And I've just accessed that by selecting the definitions link located in the upper right-hand quadrant of the screen. So those notes, again, you can add them on any data element within the survey. There is a little blurb at the top about what type of note to enter where. So this is useful to record notes about an interpretation of the definition for local use, maybe a translation, and these, again, can be removed going forward. They do push forward in time. They're not available on the reporting side. They're just your little internal notes. Whereas the annotations, and again, there's a little blurb about what to put in this note area. These annotations are public, if you will, meaning that other libraries can include them on their reports. You can reuse some annotations as well. So if you're in the position of maybe going through a renovation at your library, and maybe that is triggering multiple edit checks because your numbers are varying substantially over the prior year when you were open all year, you can click to reuse these annotations as well. So if you put in a big long note that, you know, our library closed from renovations on March 1st, 2023, and isn't expected to reopen again until such and such a time, you can just click on that and reuse it going forward. There is a little red X located next to the definition or to the annotations as well. This enables you to delete them. So if you've added one in the wrong place, you can go ahead and delete it. I can't edit reused annotations, but I can edit ones that are original or source annotations. So you can click on that and then make any updates. So if you find a typo or something, or you want to augment your annotation, you can go ahead and do that. Some of the fields are drop-down menus, so you'll be able to use a pull-down to select from the available options. Some of the fields are calculated fields as well. So let's see, I think hours is calculated. Some of the FTE information is calculated from the outlet section. Some of the options are trigger questions, or questions that will display additional information when you answer them. So in the library staff section, it asks, does the library employ an assistant director? And if you say yes, then it will ask additional information on that assistant director. Some of the pull down menu options, you know, are a little bit different than yes, no. And anything else that's sort of wild here? I don't think so. You'll see these calculated fields. So for example, total local government revenue is made up of the sum of all these other local government revenue options. So if you need to change the total, you'll have to update one of the values that goes into the total by adjusting that. I think that's it. Oh, you'll see that there are these little green check marks, and we may remove these as well. Just the visual indication of that, because we're still making a few styling updates. So if you see anything, feel free to provide your feedback if you have some styling suggestions. But I've received some styling guidebooks from Rebekah, so I'm still making some updates here. But these little green check marks, you may or may not see them. They indicate that there is an edit check on that particular field. It doesn't mean that your data is correct or incorrect, just that an edit check exists. And there still will be more edit checks that will be added to these questions as well. I feel like, oh yes, exception values. Some of the fields might have an exception value where your data is maybe unavailable, like you have attendees, or you have asynchronous programs, but that value is unavailable. You weren't able to capture that data throughout the year and be able to report it. Website visits also has an option for an exception value, two options actually. Either that website visits is not applicable because you don't have a website, or you do have a website and the value of the number of website visits isn't something that you're able to track, so the value's unavailable. So there are these different exception values that you may or may not need to employ here. You do have to make sure that the field is empty before adding an exception value. So here, there's some pre-filled information for physical item circulation, for example. I can't select unavailable here because there's already a value in the field. So you either use an exception value or you place a value in the field, and hopefully you'll have values for everything. But there are some cases where sometimes a value hasn't been tracked throughout the year. You don't have a calculation for that. Something has gone awry with your data tracking, whatever the case may be, you may be able to use those exception values from time to time. Once you've entered in all the data for your library, you can go ahead and submit/lock your report. There is also an option, though, to verify your report. And verify will just go through your report and make sure that any edit checks are satisfied, that any required fields are satisfied. You can click on any of these edit checks and it will take you down to that particular section, to the edit check. And the reason there are so many here is because there has been not much data entered, just some pre-filled data for this library. So in these cases where you see an edit check, you'll just select the notepad icon and enter in an explanation around here. So this is 193. I'll add in some text here. I can review to get out of that verify mode. And then if I verify again and I go down to question 193, you'll see that that edit check is now satisfied because I've entered an annotation. I've entered this text here to annotate that edit check. There may be cases as well where an edit check is flagged and you realize that the data entered was incorrect. Maybe you tried to enter the number of internet computers used by staff and you mistakenly placed it in the number of uses, and so there's a big difference there. So review the data when you get an edit check just to make sure the data is accurate. Normally it is accurate, but they still just want an explanation around that data. And these are mostly just federal edit checks that come in. The reason why verify is optional, I do like to select verify though, but the reason why it's optional is because if you fail to verify and you try to submit/lock, and there are some issues, it will pop up with this lock failed pop-up, and you won't be able to lock your data until you've addressed these particular issues. But the reason why I like verify is because if you have no issues, if you've entered all your data and you select submit/lock, it will just lock out your report for you. And you won't be able to make any adjustments to that report. It'll say locked, only owners, approvers can unlock. So if there is an issue, you can contact the state and they can unlock it for you. You'll still be able to view everything once your form is locked. So I'm just back at 2022 to view that. So you can still view all the data, but you won't be able to make changes to that data. So I like to do the verify option first, and it will say verified if everything is correct. And then I like to give it one extra set of eyes before I lock it. But that's just me. It's entirely optional whether you use verify or not. And then you can go ahead and submit/lock. You can print off a copy of your report at any time. You can also print it off once it's locked. There is a great, sometimes I like to use the print as a worksheet, but there is a great worksheet that Rebekah's added over here on the main screen. So you can use that as well, but there is a print option if you wanted to go ahead and use that. I'll pause now and see if there are any questions at this point. We do allow you to use any browser. We like the use of the most up-to-date browsers to make sure that it's compatible. You can log in and log out as many times as you like before entering your data. It does save as you go. So again, as soon as you exit a field, you'll see that little load icon and the data will save as you go. You can press enter, tab, or just click outside of the fields and it will save that information. Have there been any questions that have come up? Yeah.
There haven't been any questions in the chat so far,
Okay.
but we do want to give folks an opportunity if they want to unmute and ask that question in the last couple of minutes as we start to wrap things up. Denise is commenting that she likes the save as you go.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, don't be shy if you have any feedback. This is a new rollout in this particular software. So if you have any suggestions or feedback, let us know. We can certainly make adjustments. We can add to the reports that are available. So if you have any infographics or any pamphlets that you create at your library that you might want to share, we can add them as a template, and then you can just click a button and download them, and other libraries would have access to those as well. So yeah, don't be shy if you have any feedback, and I'll turn it back over unless there are any questions.
Well, I'm really excited about how this is looking, Lindsay, and as Denise mentioned, that Save As You Go is a game changer, no more lost data. As Lindsay said, if you have any questions, please get in touch with me, and Kalei has dropped my contact information in the chat. And I will also be available at fall workshops. I hope we get a chance to see each other face to face. But thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. The recording will be posted later today. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. I've shared the link to our evaluation survey in the chat as well. I've also marked everyone who attended this live session today. So your credits will be ready and waiting for you in Aspen. With that, thanks so much.